Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. This is Yaak once again, Hazaki Yahoo. And I start this broadcast as I would start any broadcast by first of all giving all praise, honor, and great esteem unto the most high power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua Hamashiach. And for those of you who don't know, Bahashem means in the name of Yehoshua the Messiah. Uh, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth, I say Shalom Wabaruki, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day that the Most High fulfills his promises and brings us back together. And we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation under the Most High power, under one covenant. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I'm joined us again this afternoon by my most esteemed Akka Kenanaya. Shabbat Shalom once again, Aki.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Aki. Shabbat Shalom, Yasharal. Let's get into this.
Hallelujah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We are back again. We got another video to cover, and praises to the Father. You know, again, these videos are meant to edify us as a people and help us realize that our only salvation, the only thing that's going to help us, is going to resolve us, is our Father, is our Abba. And that's what we need to get in our minds and in our spirits, in our ruachs. So let's get to it. And to the Most High be the esteem. Hit the wrong button. Here we go. Okay, my bad. All right, Most High be the esteem. Here we go. Oh shit, my bad. I done messed it up. Oh, my bad. It's lucky.
In our world, the color of your skin should never determine your worth or opportunities in life. But unfortunately, a deeply ingrained system known as white privilege continues to influence the destinies of individuals, often regardless of their intelligence, talents, or contributions to society. White privilege is like an invisible hand that guides the course of our lives, impacting everything from everyday encounters to life-altering moments. It's the unsettling reality that people of color, especially Black individuals, are more likely to be stopped by law enforcement, face harsher penalties, or even lose their lives in encounters that their white counterparts navigate with relative ease. It's the unspoken biases that can make it undeniably harder for Black individuals to secure loans or find stable employment. Education, too, is marred by this systemic imbalance, with Black students often facing obstacles that hinder their access to quality schooling and higher education. Even seemingly unrelated areas like insurance premiums, employment prospects, and societal acceptance are influenced by this pervasive privilege. It affects the way media portrays different racial groups, the underrepresentation of people of color in politics, and the lack of diversity in leadership roles across various industries. In this video, we aim to shine a light on the profound impact of white privilege, exposing the harsh realities faced by Black individuals and communities. While the world claims we are all equal, systematic racism and white privilege continues to loom over us all. Also, as a way of supporting our efforts, hit the like button of the video, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. Your support means a lot to us. White privilege, or white skin privilege, is the societal privilege that benefits white people over non-white people in some societies, particularly if they are otherwise under the same social, political, or economic circumstances. With roots in European colonialism and imperialism and the Atlantic slave trade, white privilege has developed in circumstances that have broadly sought to protect white racial privileges, various national citizenships, and other rights or special benefits. The phrase white privilege was first coined by activist and scholar Peggy McIntosh in 1988 in her paper White Privilege: Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. She described white privilege in terms of the unspoken advantage that the dominant culture has over people of color. In other words, power, benefits, and other advantages are distributed in unequal ways among the different groups in society. Specifically, with respect to white privilege, the advantage rests with white people. Though some people might deny the existence of white privilege, there are many instances where it exists and continues to hinder the lifestyle of Black individuals and communities. White privilege in police interactions. White privilege manifests itself in various ways when it comes to interactions with the police. It often means the difference between a peaceful encounter and a potentially life-threatening situation, especially when we examine real-life examples of Black unarmed individuals who have been unjustly shot, killed, or brutalized by law enforcement officers. A simple case as a traffic stop could easily turn deadly for a black person, even if they committed no crime and obeyed the police to the letter. The case of Philando Castile is one of the best examples of white privilege and how black people are more likely to meet their end during encounters with the police. On July 6, 2016, Philando Castile, a black man, was pulled over for a broken taillight in Minnesota. Despite complying with the officer's instructions and informing him that he had a legal firearm, Castile was shot by the officer in front of his girlfriend and her child. Geronimo Yanez, which was the police officer who pulled the trigger, would walk free regardless of the fact that he ended a man's life without cause. While this sounds tragic, it gets even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that just here recently, 2016, he said, and when you watch that video, you know, he was telling him that I'm supposed to inform you that I have a legal firearm. And I think the cop took it as he was trying to show him his gun. I think he was trying to show him his license, that he had a legitimate license. And so when he was trying to get it, that's when the cop took out his gun and started shooting him. Like, why would I tell you that I'm gonna, wait till you see something before you react like that, and then just let him go, like no true bill. It was the
Right.
ruling, as if no foul, no flag on the play. Like, this man is dead, and the court's ruling was nothing went wrong. The man, in my view, now I can't speak for the brother totally, but if I was in his situation, I wouldn't be trying to show the cop my gun. I'd be trying to show the cop my license. That would make sense, because I'm telling you, I got a legit license. I'm gonna show it to you. You know what I'm saying? But
And also, I want to say that is actually 'cause the officer asked for his license, and the moment that he reached, that's when he shot him.
yeah,
He started shooting him. But he didn't even, initially when he told him and when he informed him that he had a firearm, you know, he didn't reach for anything. It wasn't until the officer asked for some forms of ID and he reached, and that's when he shot him. And his girlfriend or his wife is in the car with him, and she's filming all of it. She's like, she's like he's asking her, why did he reach? It's like, you asked him to get you his license.
right, right. Con, yeah, I do remember that now, because it's been a while since I've seen that video, and
Hmm.
yeah, that's a man, that's
It's
heartbreaking.
terrible.
Yeah,
And every time we hear about so-called African Americans succumbing to violence, whether it be uh, brother on brother or whether it be from the police, like it's terrible to hear about.
mhm,
Uh, but these injustices is what helped wake me up.
right,
Knowing that something was off.
indeed,
And I want to say it began with Trayvon, and
Trayvon.
and in 2018 it was, or 2017 it was somebody else, and I started keeping the laws, statute, and commandments, shortly thereafter in 2018.
Con, yeah, like you said, it started with Trayvon, and I just knew that Zimmerman was going down,
Hmm.
and then we see Eric Garner, and I'm like, what is this? This dude ain't even doing nothing, and they took him down and choked him, and he like, I can't breathe, and they still choking him. Like, this dude ain't even doing nothing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He was just standing there, like, I can't breathe. Like, dude, why don't you just chill? What you got to choke the man for? I mean, it's ridiculous. Just chill. You don't got to choke a man just because he's standing there.
Right.
But,
S-
but
selling
man,
selling single cigarettes was his crime,
yeah,
and he received a death sentence for it.
death sentence, choked to death. He
Hmm.
laying there with his eyes open, talking about he's breathing. Like, his eyes are open. He's not breathing. Like, terrible. But let's continue.
In New York City, the stop and frisk policy led to a significant number of Black and Latino individuals being stopped without reasonable suspicion, resulting in tense encounters and racial profiling. Things are no way better for individuals with mental health crises when meeting with the police. White individuals experiencing mental health crises are more likely to receive compassionate treatment or intervention, while Black individuals may face escalated confrontations. The case of Elijah McClain comes to mind. On August 24, 2019, Elijah McClain, a young Black man in Colorado, was approached by police while walking home. Despite being unarmed and posing no threat, he was placed in a chokehold, injected with a sedative, and later died. The stories get even depressing when you come to know that white individuals arrested for nonviolent offenses, such as drug possession, may receive more lenient treatment from the criminal justice system. In case of Black people, it is a horrific experience.
Yeah, Khan. So, in stark contrast to that brother, there was a case. I believe it was on cops. So it was on some kind of video I saw where a man was basically holding himself hostage. It was a white man holding himself hostage. He brought a lawn chair out and set it out in front of his house. He had a pistol in his hand, and he was holding himself hostage. He told the police, "If you come, I'm going to shoot myself." And they stayed back. They brought in a sniper who got on I guess the house across the street or whatever, and the man was holding the gun on side of him on the chair. The sniper shot the gun, not the man, shot the gun. So the man no longer had the ability to hold himself hostage. Then the police moved in. When I first saw that video, this was probably in early 2000s. I thought, man, that was good police work. I didn't even understand that was white privilege and it's working right in my face. When you got a man that can hold himself hostage, if you come near me, I'm gonna shoot myself. Imagine the so-called Negro saying that to the police. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll do it for you. That's what they would get. But this man holding himself hostage. I'm gonna see if I can find that video. Continue.
The tragic story of Kalief Browder is a perfect example. Kalief Browder, a Black teenager, was arrested in New York City for allegedly stealing a backpack. Unable to make bail, he spent 3 years in pretrial detention at Rikers Island, where he faced brutal conditions. His case was eventually dismissed, but the trauma led to his tragic suicide. When it comes to the use of violence, white individuals are less likely to experience excessive use of force by the police during arrests or confrontations. For Black people, a spot in the grave is more likely. Eric Garner, a Black man, died in New York City after being placed in a chokehold by a police officer while repeatedly stating, "I can't breathe." His death sparked nationwide protests and calls for justice. These real-life examples underscore the deeply rooted disparities in the treatment of Black individuals by law enforcement, highlighting the deadly consequences of racial bias and the privilege that often shields white individuals from similar outcomes. White privilege in education. White privilege in the realm of education and schooling often translates into unequal opportunities and systemic biases that can profoundly impact the lives of Black individuals. In the U.S., white students are more likely to attend well-funded schools with access to advanced courses, experienced teachers, and extracurricular activities. This stems from decades of Jim Crows and discrimination experienced by Black people in the 19th and 20th centuries, preventing them from accessing quality education. In fact, Ruby Bridges, a Black 6-year-old, became the first African-American child to attend an all-white elementary school in New Orleans in 1960. She faced intense racial hostility, including being taught in a separate classroom, despite her academic potential. It's just not being able to attend quality schools, but the tests are also a trap for Black students. Standardized tests can be culturally biased, disadvantaging Black students who may not have access to test preparation resources. In the U.S., standardized tests like the SAT and ACT have been criticized for perpetuating racial disparities in college admissions, as they may not accurately reflect the potential of Black students. Despite the criticisms, nothing has been done and the disparities still remain. Even when being disciplined, white and Black students get a different response. White students are less likely to face harsh disciplinary measures such as suspension or expulsion for similar infractions compared to their black peers. In 2019, a 6-year-old black girl, Kaya Roll in Florida, was arrested and handcuffed for a minor tantrum at school, raising concerns about the over-policing of black students. While being dragged out like a criminal, Kaya begged a school resource officer for a second chance, as her tiny wrists were zip-tied and she was escorted out of Lucius and Emma Nixon Academy. Kaya was taken into custody after she reportedly threw a temper tantrum that was triggered because of her sleep apnea, a condition that the school was well aware of and makes her irritable during the day. After the arrest, Kaya developed extreme separation anxiety. She would wake up screaming with night terrors and wet her bed until she had to move into her grandmother's room to finally fall asleep. While this sounds tragic, this is not the only case. Taylor Bracy, who was 16 years old, was seen in a video being body slammed by a school resource officer at Liberty High School in Kissimmee, Florida. Like Kaya, Bracy's mother has publicly said that her daughter is traumatized and has suffered from side effects from the incident, including memory loss, headaches, and blurry vision. These aren't isolated incidents. This is part of a pattern of violence that black students have been experiencing for years. Research shows black students are more likely to be perceived as an adult compared with their white counterparts and face harsher punishments in school. This way in which black student behaviors are read as provocative or dangerous or problematic when their counterparts of other racial ethnic groups are not perceived this way. And a lot of that has to do with the historical tropes and stereotypes associated with being black that present a particular risk for black students. Black students are not just treated worse overall, but teachers also have low expectations for them in the future. White students often benefit from positive stereotypes and higher expectations from teachers, while black students may face negative stereotypes and lower academic expectations. Malcolm X, a human rights activist who was a prominent figure during the civil rights movement, is a perfect example. Malcolm attended West Junior High School in Lansing and then Mason High School in Mason, Michigan, but left high school in 1941 before graduating. He excelled in junior high school, but dropped out of high school after a white teacher told him that practicing law, his aspiration at the time, was no realistic goal for a Negro. Later, Malcolm X recalled feeling that the white world offered no place for a career-oriented black man, regardless of talent. These examples illustrate how systemic racism and white privilege can shape educational experiences and outcomes for black individuals. White privilege in employment.
You know, what would have happened if Malcolm would have been an attorney? You know what I'm saying? Like his great orator abilities. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, he would have.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He did a great work. Not necessarily with the Nation of Islam, but you know, in his last days, he was killed because he started teaching the truth, and you know that would have been. But if he'd have done that in the courtroom, if we'd have heard about, you know, Malcolm Little or Malcolm X, the attorney, you know, how that would have been dynamic. So,
yeah, they still would have wanted him dead. You know,
yeah,
they would have wanted him dead that much more. You know,
because he'd have been the Johnny Cochran of his time.
that's exactly what I was thinking. He would have been the blueprint for Ben Crump and Johnny Cochran and the character that Jamie Foxx just played in the movie Burial. I forget the name of that lawyer, but you know, he would have been more so for the people versus how, you know, those individuals. You know, Ben Crump, I can say that, you know, he's for the people. You always see him when there's been an injustice. He's usually the face that we see. Not so much with you know, Johnny and you know, the character that Jamie was playing, but you know, Ben Crump for sure.
Indeed. All right, continuing. White privilege and employment. That's what this is about.
White privilege often extends its influence into the realm of employment, job opportunities, and labor practices. White job applicants are less likely to face biases in hiring decisions, benefiting from assumptions of competence and qualifications. In fact, sending CVs with traditionally white-sounding names receive 50% more callbacks for interviews than those with names perceived as black, even when qualifications were identical. Despite laws against discrimination, affirmative action, a degree of employer enlightenment, and the desire by some businesses to enhance profits by hiring those most qualified regardless of race. African Americans are twice as likely as whites to be unemployed, and they earn nearly 25% less when they are employed. 2 decades ago, a black woman named Kalisha White applied for a team leader position at Target and worried that her application had been ignored because of her race. So she sent it back in with a different name and slightly fewer qualifications. That application got her an interview. Eventually, she won a class action lawsuit against the massive retailer to test whether employers might discriminate against job applicants with black-sounding names. Associate professors of economics Marianne Bertrand with Chicago's Graduate School of Business and Sendil Mullainathan with MIT conducted an elaborate experiment. They fabricated resumes for multiple phantom job seekers with common black and white names. The professors then sent out nearly 5,000 resumes for 1,300 job openings advertised in newspapers and on online job sites throughout Chicago and Boston. Most job openings for which the researchers sent resumes were administrative, sales, clerical, and managerial positions. Bertrand and Mullainathan randomly assigned the applicants' names common to either black men, black women, white men, or white women, and were careful not to send identical resumes to the same employer. Bertrand and Mullainathan then tracked which of their applicants were called for job interviews. Bertrand said that more resumes were sent to Chicago area employers simply because it is the larger metropolitan area, but added that the rate for interview requests was virtually identical between the two cities. The results were a bit disturbing. Applicants with white-sounding names were 50% more likely to be contacted for job interviews than those with typical black names. There were no significant differences between the rates at which men and women were contacted. The results indicate large racial differences in callback rates to a phone line with a voicemail box attached, and a message recorded by someone of the appropriate race and gender. Job applicants with white names needed to send about 10 resumes to get one callback. Those with African American names needed to send around 15 resumes to get one callback. This would suggest either employer prejudice or employer perception that race signals lower productivity. While this study was done in 2003, new research finds that employers aren't treating identical resumes equally and job applicants with black names still less likely to get interviews. In 2021, researchers from the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Chicago sent 83,000 fictitious applications for entry-level job postings to 108 Fortune 500 employers, using randomly assigned and racially distinctive names. They found that applicants with black names were called back 10% fewer times across the board, and even less when it came to specific companies, despite having comparable applications to their white counterparts. It's not just getting a job that is difficult. Climbing up the corporate ladder is near impossible for black people. White employees often have a higher likelihood of receiving promotions and being considered for leadership roles within organizations. Ursula Burns, the first black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company, Xerox, faced considerable challenges in breaking through the corporate glass ceiling despite her qualifications. She would go on to inspire black people everywhere, becoming a beacon of hope and success. Another crucial aspect of this labor market inequality is the significant pay gap between black and white workers. In 2019, the median black worker earned 24.4% less per hour than their white counterpart. What's even more concerning is that this wage gap has increased over the years, surpassing the gap observed in 1979. Even when adjusting for education, experience, and regional disparities, a substantial unexplained wage gap of 14.9% remained in 2019. This is up from 8.6% in 1979, indicating that there's more to this wage gap than meets the eye. Moreover, this issue is even more pronounced among men compared to women. These racial wage disparities have continued to grow, even in a broader context of rising wage inequality. Black workers have seen fewer benefits from overall increases in productivity compared to their white counterparts. Between 1979 and 2019, while net productivity per hour increased significantly, median wages only grew modestly. The median wage for black workers grew even more slowly during this period, highlighting a troubling trend. Various economic theories have been proposed to explain these disparities, including human capital theory, models of discrimination based on personal preferences, and statistical models of discrimination. However, none of these theories provide a complete and satisfactory explanation for the enduring racial disparities in unemployment and pay. Despite a wealth of empirical evidence and a historical record that underscores the role of discrimination, there is still ongoing debate within the field of economics regarding the interpretation of these disparities. These instances underscore the systemic disparities rooted in white privilege that continue to shape employment practices, job opportunities, and labor dynamics. Despite their qualifications and abilities, Black individuals often face significant barriers to career advancement and economic equality. White privilege in housing and loans. White privilege can manifest significant.
Okay, before we get into housing and loans, talking about the job situation, I mean, I think we've all experienced that. Definitely, it's customary that so-called Black people are the first ones to get fired, last ones to get hired in most job situations. And it's gotten to be such a disparity that the only hope, truthfully, is self-employment, or starting your own business, being your own boss, because otherwise somebody else is going to see you as expendable. Not necessarily the case as much with their counterparts, with our counterparts. I mean, there's been situations where that favor, I've definitely experienced myself, even before the truth. Being in management, and they actually let a couple of Caucasians go before they let me go, which I thought was, which I just attributed to the Abba, at that time, the Most High, I want to say that G word, the God word,
Right.
keeping me at that time. But I definitely believe it was the power, the same power I'm serving then. I've served the same power I was serving now. I was serving then, because my heart was always to the power that was in the book, never to the ideals that was taught to us. So, but yeah, definitely a great disparity, and when it comes to employment practices and things of that nature. I have any idea that it would take 15 resumes to get one callback. Like, that's unreasonable, highly unreasonable. But yeah, that's the reality that our people have to deal with. And again, it goes back to, you can't expect these people to put you in a place over them. That's not sensible. That's not a sensible practice. I'm gonna put you ahead of me. I want you to be up above me. No, nobody wants that. So, except for Black people, some of our people, I should say. Yeah, continue.
Significantly in housing, insurance, and loan processes, leading to disparities in access and opportunities. White individuals are often more likely to have access to housing in desirable neighborhoods, while Black individuals may face housing discrimination and exclusion from predominantly white areas. The practice of redlining in the United States historically denied Black families access to loans and housing in certain neighborhoods, perpetuating racial segregation. Such practices have long-lasting effects on housing disparities. Black inner-city neighborhoods were most likely to be redlined. Investigations found that lenders would make loans to lower-income white borrowers, but not to middle or upper-income African Americans. Unable to get regular mortgages, Black residents who wanted to own a house often were forced to resort to exploitatively priced housing contracts that massively increased the cost of housing and gave them no equity until their last payment was delivered. While there have been laws passed to prevent redlining and put an end to the practice, the effects can still be seen today. White individuals are more likely to become homeowners, benefiting from the wealth accumulation associated with property ownership. A study by the Urban Institute found that the homeownership gap between white and Black Americans widened over the past few decades, with significant disparities in wealth accumulation. Since the housing bust and Great Recession, The homeownership gap between black and white households has widened to its largest level in 50 years. Between 2010 and 2017, according to the American Community Survey, the gap increased from 28.1 percentage points in 2010 to 30.2 percentage points in 2017. Over this period, the homeownership rate for white households fell from 72.6% to 71.9%, while the rate for black households declined 2.7 percentage points to 41.8%. When it comes to even starting a business, white individuals typically have greater access to loans and financial services, including business loans and investment opportunities, while black entrepreneurs often struggle to secure loans and funding for their businesses, facing systemic barriers that limit their economic opportunities. This is one of the reasons for the wealth gap among black and white households. These examples highlight how systemic racism and white privilege affect housing and loan processes, leading to disparities in access and outcomes. Despite their qualifications and financial stability, black individuals may face significant obstacles and discrimination in these areas. White privilege in the criminal justice.
Okay, so, I work in a call center as my regular job, and it's ironic to say how many people call up in the call center, and well, it's normally Caucasians. They'll say, "Yeah, I have 2 houses, and in one of my houses," I'm like, "What does it have to do with what are you calling me for? How can I help you?" Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like it's the arrogance. It's that yeah, I have 2 houses. Like why would you lead with that? I asked you for your name, and yeah, I have 2 houses. Like, so
God.
that's not me being hateful. I mean, that's like, why would you lead with that? Walk up to somebody, hey, I have 2 houses. Like, who cares?
Hmm.
Go cut both your lines.
Kind and when we finish up, when we close out, I'll explain to you what that's about and that
Right,
that feeling that you have from that, uh,
exactly.
and it'll make sense.
Kind. Okay, let's continue. Criminal justice, white privilege in the criminal justice
System. White privilege can be evident in the criminal justice system, affecting how individuals are treated, convicted, and sentenced. White individuals are less likely to be wrongfully convicted of crimes they did not commit, as they may face less scrutiny and bias during investigations. The case of the Central Park Five, which involved 5 black and Latino teenagers wrongfully convicted, comes to mind. When Trisha May Lee's body was discovered in New York City's Central Park early in the morning on April 20th, 1989, she had been so badly beaten and repeatedly defiled that she remained in a coma for nearly 2 weeks and retained no memory of the attack. The brutal assault of the 28-year-old white investment banker, who had been out for a jog the night before, led to widespread public outcry and the quick arrest and subsequent conviction of 5 black and Latino teens: Antron McCray, 15, Kevin Richardson, 15, Yusuf Salam, 15, Raymond Santana, 14, and Corey Wise, 16, who came to be known as the Central Park Five. But in 2002, after serving sentences that ranged from 6 to 13 years for what then New York City Mayor Ed Koch called the crime of the century, new DNA evidence and a confession proved convicted offender Matias Reyes was the true lone culprit. The charges against the 5 men were vacated, and they eventually received a $41 million settlement. Even when white individuals are convicted, they often receive more lenient sentences for similar crimes compared to their black counterparts. The Affluenza case that involved a white teenager, Ethan Couch, is a perfect example of white privilege in play, even when it involves heinous crimes. Ethan Couch, a white teenager from a wealthy family, was involved in a drunk driving incident in 2013 that resulted in the deaths of 4 people. During his trial, the defense argued that Couch should not be held fully responsible for his actions due to his affluent upbringing, and a term coined as affluenza, suggesting that his rich background shielded him from understanding the consequences of his actions. Couch received a controversial sentence of 10 years of probation and therapy, rather than a harsher punishment like incarceration. Many critics argued that his sentence was an example of white privilege, as they believed a person from a less privileged background would have received a more severe punishment for similar actions. The case sparked a broader conversation about disparities in the criminal justice system, particularly how race and socioeconomic factors can impact sentencing and outcomes in legal cases. It raised questions about whether individuals from marginalized communities would receive similar leniency in the justice system. While the term affluenza was widely criticized and not recognized as a formal mental health diagnosis, the case itself became a symbol of the intersection between privilege, race, and the legal system in the United States. While white offenders get a slap on the wrist and are less likely to receive the death penalty compared to black defendants, even for similar crimes, black offenders could be looking at the death penalty, even if there are doubts that they committed the crime. The case of Troy Davis garnered international attention when he was executed in Georgia, despite significant doubts about his guilt. Davis was executed for the execution of a police officer, a crime he always maintained he did not commit. In the months before his execution, people around the country urged Georgia to reconsider in light of the serious doubts about his guilt, including the fact that 7 out of 9 witnesses recanted their testimony against him. Despite calls to stay his execution from politicians on both sides of the aisle, the NAACP, the Innocence Project, and Amnesty International, the state moved ahead with Davis's execution. When it comes to second chances, white individuals are also at the top of it. White individuals may benefit more from post-conviction legal reforms, such as reduced sentences or parole, compared to black individuals with similar convictions. The case of Cyntoia Brown, a black woman who was sentenced to life in prison for executing a man who had solicited her for intercourse when she was a minor, led to calls for criminal justice reform and a reconsideration of her sentence. Cyntoia Brown was just 16 when she was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of a man she claims bought her for intercourse. The homeless runaway had been in and out of the juvenile justice system, survived multiple defilement and assaults, and was forced into intercourse slavery by her then boyfriend, a pimp known as Cutthroat, who regularly sold her for drug money. Yet few details of Brown Long's troubled childhood were heard by the Tennessee court in 2004, which instead repeatedly described her as a teen call girl and tried her as an adult. It took the influence of celebrities like Kim Kardashian, Rihanna, and LeBron James to force Tennessee to re-examine its own unusually harsh juvenile sentencing laws, which require under 18s convicted of first-degree murder to face 51 years behind bars before a chance of parole. Brown was later released at the age of 31 years old. Before her petition for clemency was granted, Brown Long would not have been eligible for parole until she was 69. These examples demonstrate how systemic racism and white privilege can influence the outcomes of criminal cases, leading to disparities in convictions and sentencing. Overall, white privilege is a deeply ingrained issue in our society that continues to undermine the lives of black individuals, regardless of their intelligence and contributions to society. It's a painful reality that the color of one's skin can significantly impact their life outcomes, from education to employment, encounters with law enforcement, and access to essential services like loans and insurance. This pervasive issue doesn't just affect individuals. It perpetuates systemic inequalities that persist in our communities. It's reflected not only in our daily lives, but also in media, politics, and various aspects of society. It's essential for all of us to acknowledge and address white privilege actively. By doing so, we can work towards a more equitable society where people are judged based on their abilities, character, and contributions, rather than the color of their skin. Our collective responsibility is to challenge and change the systems that sustain white privilege, striving for a world where everyone has an equal opportunity to thrive and succeed. In the end, let's build a society where a person's worth isn't tied to their skin color, but to their humanity and potential. This brings us to the end of this video. Tell us what you think in the...
Yeah, indeed. So, yeah, white privilege, alive and well, and the driving force to orchestrate the repentance of the children of Israel.
That's right.
And that's one thing you won't get on these videos, which is why we come back and show you and give you the real truth. Yeah,
Hmm.
white privilege is a real thing, and it adversely affects our people at every turn. But there's a reason why we're in the situation that we're in. We should be
Hmm.
in our own land, governing our own selves uh, through the Torah and dealing with the privilege of uh, being an Israelite.
Hmm.
That's what we should be dealing with. Instead, we're dealing with being under these other people and what they have implemented. So the idea behind all of this is to get you to realize that you need your power,
Hmm.
and nothing that you do is going to get you uh, where your power would have you to be. So that's where it boils down to, and that's what we need to come to the realization of. We need our power, and our power is the greatest that has ever been, and
Indeed, Doc.
nothing will surpass it at all. All right, go ahead.
Con, man, I love what you said from start to finish there. Uh, these things happen to orchestrate our people's repentance. We're hearing in this of new terms being coined. What it was it?
Affluence, affluence.
Affluentia. Yeah,
Mm,
a new term coined to uphold this privilege, this white privilege,
right.
uh, and terms that have already been coined are negated. And what I mean when I say that, post-traumatic stress syndrome
Right.
is negated in regards to our people. But what we have to remember is that these things are happening to orchestrate our people's repentance and future restoration. Uh, I want you to pull Romans chapter 10,
Okay.
because what you said was spot on. Spot on. And or the feeling that you felt like when you were talking about the individual that you had encountered, and he's coming to you telling you he's got two homes, but that feeling that you had, uh you know the Most High has made good on his word, Doc, and he always does. If he says it, it's not gonna come back void. But Romans chapter 10, begin it. Let me see. Let me pull it as well. Uh, 10. Let's where we have context. Let's begin at verse 16, and we're gonna read all the way down to verse 19.
Okay. Con. Book of Romans, chapter 10 and verse 16. But they have not obeyed the gospel, the good news. For Ezra uh, saith, Master, who have departed, or it's like who have believed our report? Who believed you? Who believed what you have said?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 17. So when faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Most High. But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily. Their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world. But I said, Slacky, but I say, did not Israel know? First, Moses or Moshe said, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation will I anger you.
Con. So that's when we hear these stories. Actually, not only hearing these stories, but living these stories out. We're provoked to jealousy and anger, as the word says. But the question rises because a lot of our people that are stuck in the church and don't want to read from the Old Testament. Paul is pretty much bringing about an Old Testament, so-called Old Testament message in
Mm,
this letter right here. But one might ask, so when did Moses or Moshe ever say these things? So pull Deuteronomy chapter 32.
okay.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, and we know that this is actually the day that this is Moshe's. It's all for one. It's the day that he was born. Like on this day, on this time that he's speaking to the children of Yasharal, he's 120 years old at this
Hmm.
time, which was also the day that he died.
Hmm.
Right. But go to let's see.
Right. I
Well,
think
where we have context. Uh, well, yeah. Start at verse 15.
15. Okay. Kind of.
Yeah, and we're gonna read down to down to 21.
Okay. Kind of. Book of Devarim or Deuteronomy, chapter 32 and verse 15. But Yesharon waxed fat and kicked. You have waxed and fat, or you are waxing fat. You are grown thick and are covered with fatness. And he and he forsook the Most High, made him a light esteem, the rock of his salvation.
So our listeners might hear that word in the beginning of verse 15, Yeshurun.
Mhm.
This is a symbolic name of the children of Yasharal. Uh, this is when we're walking uprightly, is what
Right.
we're called, Yeshurun. So we've got context on who Moshe is addressing
Mhm.
in this message. Continue out.
Verse 16. They provoked him to jealousy with strange idols, with strange gods,
Mm-hmm.
with abominations, provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to the Most High, to idols whom they knew not, to new idols who came newly up,
Mm-hmm.
whom your fathers feared not. Gave no
Con.
reverence to these idols. Your fathers didn't deal with them at all.
That's right.
Verse 18. Of the rock that begot you, you are unmindful. So to the one that made you and brought you to where you are, you didn't consider him.
Right.
You have forgotten the power that formed you.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 19, Slack. Uh, and when Yahuwah or Yahweh saw it, he abhorred them, but of the provoking of his sons and his daughters. Slack, because of the provoking of his sons and his daughters. Verse 20. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. And they are a very forward generation, children of whom there is no belief, no faith.
Mm.
Verse 21. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not power. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
Con. Uh, the Most High said this. I don't know how long ago this was exactly. I know that this was thousands of years ago. Uh, we spoke about before how the Most High declares the end from the beginning, and that's couldn't be more true.
Right.
And what we're reading in those two books right there is clearly evident of what is going on, and it's to invoke our people to repentance.
Mhm.
We have moved the Most High in anger and in jealousy, and He has turned that back on us. Uh, we see the privilege of others, and we see where we're at the bottom of the barrel. And I used to think it was because we was black, right? I used to
Right.
think it's because we were black, but the people from India, they come over here and they're oftentimes maybe not as dark as me,
Right.
but you know darker than a lot of so-called Negro people. People from Pakistan, people from other places in the world, they come over here. They don't have the same issues that the so-called Negro has,
Right.
right? So no, it's not about you being the melanin that you have in your skin. It's about what nation you belong to and who
Exactly.
you belong to.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
all I got.
Kind of praises to the Father. But yeah, you're exactly right on the head. You hit it on the head, and that was a beautiful breakdown. Indeed, yeah, the Most High definitely is sought to provoke us, and instead of us taking it as that, a lot of our people have taken it as a vacation, as a chance to live the American so-called dream, the so-called American dream, and there is no American dream for a so-called Negro. Now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, the Most High have given us instruction to live and not be consumed in these captivities. He told that to Daniel, build houses, plant vineyards, you know, give your daughters to her husbands, take wives unto your sons, and continue to live and multiply. So these things need to continue to happen. Yes, indeed. However, never feel like in your captivity that that's the best thing for you. Children of Israel went through that coming out of Mizraim as well. Oh, remember when we sat by the flesh pots and we did eat bread to the full. We had a place to bury our dead.
Mm-hmm.
We had this and that. When we were in captivity in Mizraim, we had it better than we got it right now, trying to build ourselves into a nation. And that's our people's mindset to this day. How many times have you heard your own so-called people say, I don't want to live with just black people?
Right.
Like, well, are you out of your mind? Like, that's that's just comical. That's not even. I'm not even laughing because it's so stupid. That's why I'm laughing at it because that's just crazy. Like, I don't want to live with just black people. What? Okay, okay. So I'm gonna stop it there because I don't want to get into some folly. But this is the mindset of our people. This is why I said, except for our own people. We the only ones that think like that. We want somebody over us. Let them to do the brunt of the work. But I'm telling you that the Most High has already carved it out, and it's just a matter of time. So whether you buy in now or you try to buy in later, it's gonna come to fruition, and you can't get around it. All right. So with that, we're gonna close it out. We'll close out with the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter number 12 and verse number 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. It is imperative and so very important that in the conclusion of the whole matter, that we fear the Most High and keep his commandments, because this is the whole reason that we are here. At the end of the day, when all the dust is settled and all the smoke is cleared, when it is all said and done, we will be judged on whether we feared the Most High and kept his commandments. Why? Because this is the whole reason we were made. I am
Mm-hmm.
Akazaki Yahoo, joined by my most esteemed Aka Kenanaya, giving all praise, honor, and great esteem unto the Most High Power, Yahuwah Bahashem, Yahushua HaMashiach, and to the 12 tribes of Israel who are scattered to the four quarters of the earth. I say Shalom Wabaruki, that is peace and blessings. And I cannot wait to the day that the Most High brings us back together, and we are once again 12 tribes, one family, one nation, under the Most High Power, under one covenant. Until that day, Shabbat Shalom, family.
Shabbat shalom, Mr. Pakar.